involved in this fraud. And yet you want to put this back on the insurance, Department of Insurance.
Has anyone ever spoken to the Department of Insurance to find out if
They don't want this.
They throw it back on the Board of Embalmers.
So you have spoken to someone. Okay.
You, Brian, as a licensee, cannot delegate that duty to an unlicensed person. If you had, Mr. Boyer, if you had somebody from your town that didn't have a license, they wouldn't be meeting with at-need families, and they shouldn't be meeting with pre-need families. Now, what if that consumer dies halfway through the arrangement conference? Then what do you call it? Is it
Are they
at-need?
writing a final expense policy, or are they actually writing a guaranteed product? Are they putting it in the OFDA master trust? Are they invested into an insurance policy?
You do not want to seem to understand or comprehend the difference between soliciting professional services and funding professional services.
I think if you're providing funeral services and goods, you need to be a funeral director.
Okay.
I think if you're selling an insurance policy, you need to be an insurance agent.
What if you're funding it through a bank trust? Then what are you doing?
Well, OFDA master trust, that's what goes in there.
I'm asking you, what
An
are you-
insurance
what are you
agent can't
doing?
sell OFDA master trust, only a funeral director
All right,
can.
what if-
And he doesn't have to have a license to do it.
It's the same tired argument that this board has made, that it's the hot potato that you throw back to us and say, bring us some complaints. Well, we've done that. Then when you do get the complaint landed there, you don't do anything about it, because funeral home owners have been in charge too long in Ohio running this board. And the consumer is the one being hurt because they're being misrepresented. And then people like me who have the proper credentials are being pushed out of our jobs by these agents when a funeral home owner cannot delegate that responsibility to an unlicensed person. So who's being hurt? Licensees are being pushed out of their jobs, and consumers are being misrepresented, and yet this board does nothing
This board
except
has no
talk
authority over
about
insurance.
doing something.
We're not talking about, you don't want to understand that, Greg. You just can't comprehend this. Maybe the scope is too big.
So if you didn't have an insurance license, could you sell what you're selling?
I can fund it through a bank.
But are you gonna make a commission on the trust, 100% trust?
That's regardless.
Are you gonna make a living by not having an insurance license?
The key is being affiliated with the funeral home. I'm representing Rutherford Funeral Home as a representative and pre-need specialist. I have a funeral director's license. We fund it with insurance, but I'm meeting with and can meet with at-need families. There's no line in the sand. It's pre-need or at-need for a licensed funeral director.
So if somebody's 50 years old and you write a $5,000 policy, what's your commission?
Well, it's
What
irrelevant.
does that matter? I have the authority to meet with that family and solicit those funeral services. Now, if I'm an agent for Northwestern Mutual Life and I call on your family and they say, hey, we're thinking about maybe setting aside some money for our funerals, the agent might sell them, but he cannot escort them to the funeral home and show them merchandise and sit down and make funeral arrangements, can he? Would he do that in your funeral home?
Well,
Would the
some
Northwestern-
people will never buy off of a funeral director. Some will only buy from their life insurance
That's an
agent
insurance
that they've
policy.
known their whole life. And they'll never buy from me as a funeral director, but they always trust their insurance agent.
Well, while the media's here, I want to be clear that funeral home owners need to wake up and smell the coffee, that they are forcing the hand of licensed people like myself to make these complaints, and yet this board does nothing, and in the past 10 years has done nothing but turn away and deny people like us meetings to voice our concerns. I think it's important,
About insurance.
because if I was an attorney, I would be mad if someone was practicing law without a license. If I was a doctor, I would be mad if someone was practicing medicine without a license. And there's legal recourse for those things. Why isn't there recourse in this? You might as well eliminate the requirement and let the Wild West show begin, because anybody could do anything in this state in the way that you're setting us up.
Mr. Chairman, would it be helpful if we consulted with the AG's office to get an updated memo on this issue?
We don't regulate insurance. That's out of our realm.
No, I'm
It's not the board's authority to even think about regulating insurance.
No, I'm not asking.
This is the board of the funeral directors and embalmers. It's not the insurance
I'm not asking about regulation, I'm asking for a legal memo.
From the private meeting that they had with her. Is that what you're asking? Like a report from the private meeting you had with them?
I'm going to clarify here. There is already a request to the AG's office that was done back in May to write a memo on this law and whether it has changed. In the very first meeting, it was only 2 months ago,
Right.
where I was the attorney representing the board, I was asked, what's the status of this? And I said, it's on my agenda, I'm looking at it. And Mr. Tanev suggested that I go back and review the meeting video from May, which I did, and I did not have enough information to really paint a picture. And I have concerns about the North Carolina Dental Board case, and I want to make sure I give you a thorough memo. I have it half drafted, but I wanted to get the context of everything. So on Mr. Tanev's suggestion, I contacted Mr. Wilson and Mr. Zamborski. I called them, we had a phone conference, I told them, I'm not representing you, I'm representing the board, just tell me what this is about. They told me what it was about, and I have background, and I already got this half drafted, and I'm perfectly happy.
So we should wait for that then? That's what Mr. Mayor saying?
It'll be done,
Yeah.
it'll be done before the next meeting.
Okay.
That makes sense.
But I do want to end by, because I think this is important, what the analysis says. I think this is important, and this is what we have to go by. And I'm just going to say, allows insurance agents to sell, solicit, or negotiate the sale of an insurance policy or annuity that will be used to fund a pre-need funeral contract, as long as the agent does not offer advice or make recommendations about funeral services or discuss the advantages or disadvantages of any funeral service.
And I cannot meet with the family without offering advice. So it's not possible.
I don't know if it's for or not.
Can I make one point? I've tried to say as little as possible, but I just feel like I need to make one point. I think this discussion probably proves why I said 1 hour a conversation between just myself and Mr. Zamborski wouldn't be beneficial. Why I asked in the email message that you're referring to for further clarification about what specifics they had and what we could respond to. I numerous times did talk over the phone to Mr. Zamborski, and I have sent to him numerous times our complaint process. I've asked for specific details. They are correct. They have sent me websites of individuals, but no specific details about who they may have met with, when they may have met with them, or anything for me to look into other than to just go and review everything that that person potentially may have done, who is also an insurance agent and again, not under our scope. But just to clarify that.
Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Maybe we'll wait for an updated memo.
But if there's an insurance agent out there doing this, we have no jurisdiction whatsoever over an insurance agent.
You have jurisdiction over the licensee that's delegating that to an unlicensed person, so don't sit there and deny.
Mr. Zamborski, and Mr. Boyer, you may be right and you may be right. I don't know. I'm not in your business. What bothers me is that it is an important issue that affects all of you in your industry. What bothers me is that this gentleman has not been given an audience with the executive director. When we have people come before the cosmetology board that have significant issues, our executive directors over my past 10 years always meet with these people because these are taxpayers. It's not a waste of their time and money, not a waste of our time and money to meet with them and hear them. No one's asking that they be given legal advice. No one is asking that action be taken on behalf of the board without the board's permission. I'm simply stating that the executive director could have met with these gentlemen and heard their grievances and then reported back to the board for consideration. That's it.
They've spoke to this board several times.
They
and I was in
haven't
the
met
meeting.
with the executive director.
The board directs the executive director. But they've met with us and they met with Tom and
You talked about transparency. you don't have transparency and you don't have
I
confidence.
don't have the authority to regulate insurance.
I would
industry.
not have confidence in this board if I were these gentlemen, if they can't get an audience with the executive.
I think they've had quite an audience today.
This is with the board.
Right. I think they've got to voice their opinion here today.
And for
But
anyone in
you're
the
saying
general
that we should
public,
do something more.
For
when
anyone
we're at
in
a
the general
standstill, and
public-
we say we do not regulate the funeral
not
insurance
be
and
given
give
an
a legal for me to
opportunity
do that.
to
Now,
be-
as an attorney, wouldn't you advise me that I'm not over an insurance agent?
I'm not going to advise you because I would never have a client like you.
So, I can make a statement for that too, but I'm not going to, because I'm an unprofessional.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Town, I want you to at least try to understand this. This is, and since you are an attorney and you know the law is gray, okay? There's gray area.
Yes.
So is this issue. It's very, very gray.
You're probably 100% correct.
So-
Again, it's about meeting with them and hearing their grievances. That's it.
I understand.
That's it. All right, let's move on.
Can you help them go to the insurance commission and go with them and have this discussion? Since you know what, and then you can go and see what happens there and see how the insurance board can help out with this situation? Can you do that?
I got a lot on my plate, but if that's what you would want me to do, I would make every effort to do that.
Okay, well, I think it'd be good to take these gentlemen, go to the insurance commission board and get on the board and ask and see what their opinion is.
No, I don't want to be on another board, not now.
No, I'm just saying you can go as a meeting, as a client, as
May I just add one comment? Mr. Boyer, somebody's not licensed as a funeral director meeting with a family at need. What are they doing?
I'm not there for their discussions. I know people have been selling insurance for as long as people have been doing funeral service. I'm not there for discussions.
Thank you.
Are we done with this issue, ready to move on?
We are, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, 9.02, email access by Ms. Mycamp to board members' funeral board email accounts. We're going to have to clarify this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'm going to share with you the 4 emails that were provided on this topic. Who else back here? Any other media people? On my concerns, my problem with the accessibility to the funeral board's members' emails. And I will start with the exchange that started with an email that I received from Ms. Nykamp that says, "We do not have a tech guy. It is my understanding that the state of Ohio has a tech guy that manages the funeral board website." Then there's another email that says from Ms. Nykamp, "I have access to reset the account. If I reset it, then use the password to open the account. I just accessed your account with that information." The third email from Ms. Nykamp says that I am the tech guy for board doc administrative rules. And finally, your email, Mr. Boyer, that after the PS, about you have no problem with, I'm assuming,
Can we clarify how that statement started? I set up a state email account. You like to use my personal business account that all my employees use. I stated to you that I no longer wanted board business being sent to my personal email account at my business that all my employees have access to.
I hit reply all, and that was the address that Ms. Luca used in her email.
Right, but that's where I was talking about.
And Mr. Wasco has his personal email. And when I look back in my 1 foot of files here, there are numerous instances previous to this where personal email accounts have been used by the previous chair and by other members on
I
this board.
understand somebody
I
can
just
do it.
didn't
I don't
reply
know my
all.
business, because my employees have access. So when you were sending all that, when my employees come up to do an obituary for a newspaper or use the computer, they can read all the business between you and Christine.
That's between you, and you should not have.
Right, and I
Don't
stated,
blame me.
and I stated you not
Right,
to
but
send
don't
it there.
blame me.
I stated you to send it there. You said I provided it to you 3 times. I stated that I had never provided that email to you.
That was intended
And
for
you
Mr.
said, yes,
Chandler.
I did.
That was
And
intended.
then I told you to stop sending stuff to me.
Okay.
And you told me to cease and desist, and that I was harassing you because I asked you to quit using my personal email account. That's the subject we're talking about
Okay.
here. Now, you're referring to board docs. She resets board docs. This isn't an email account. This accesses information, so we're paperless. I don't know how you can state that she's accessing your email accounts at your place of business, and you're stating that
No.
she's going in and using your computers.
No, I didn't say that.
You said she's accessing your email account.
Right here, during these meetings, you can go in and
That's board
send,
docs.
you can send direct messages to all the board members, you can send messages to one board member, you can have all sorts of communication on here. I do not want,
That's not true.
well.
I've never used it for that. I use it to come on here to have a meeting, but this is board docs. Schools use this. I think Pickerington School System, they use board docs.
Okay.
Shall I clarify?
So it's not emails, this is board docs. It's an information thing for us to have meetings.
I don't want Ms. Nykamp to have access to my account.
But she told you you could change once you go in there, you reset your password, and you delete the old password, and then you're in, and nobody else can go in. And that's where I stated that I don't have a problem with her if she wanted to go into this or not.
I do
Because
have a
this is an
problem.
information, it's not being used for emails, it's not being used to send somebody
She's
an
not the
email.
tech person for the state of Ohio. I don't want her having access to my
Well,
account here.
Turn that over,
And-
and you put the program on your laptop, and you bring your own laptop in.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion at this time to go into an executive session for the sole purpose of the consideration of any of the following matters: to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints.
That's your motion?
That's my motion.
There's a motion on the floor. We need a second.
I'll say.
Mr. Taniff, did you have that drawn out? What you read? Did you have what you read on something that I could go ahead and type it in here exactly as you read it?
I'll read it to you again. I move the board to go into an executive session for the purpose of the consideration of the following matters: to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee or official.
Jack was second.
I'm just going to copy it from revised code. This section of code, Christie, is it 125 point?
121.22, G1. I'm sorry, 122.21.
122.
Yes.
One 122 is rural and grant.
The other. 122.22.
That's grant eligibility. I think it's 125.
Tell me, what's the code section in the statute? One 121.22 G1.
Thank you.
And also in your motion, are you requesting that Christy Lindberg be in this meeting or not
No.
be in this meeting?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm not.
Is there going to be no taking in this meeting?
No.
I can give you rules for executive session if you'd like that. You have to do a roll call vote, as we're about to do. You can't take votes during the session. You cannot decide anything during the session. Only board president members need to be present. You can choose who you want to bring in, and you have to stick to the topic that is being asked to be brought up.
And just to be clear, in your motion, you wanted to include the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee?
That's what I said. I said to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee or official.
I just want to have one point of clarification for the board. The law goes on to say, unless the public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual requests a public hearing. Therefore, if you are going to discuss an investigation of me, I would request you do it in an open meeting of the board.
You're not entitled to attend that executive session.
I am entitled by the law to have it in a public hearing.
You are not entitled to a public hearing.
The Supreme Court of Ohio ruled in September about this issue that it is only a hearing that would be otherwise granted by law. If the board is discussing a public employee and that employee doesn't already have a hearing right, then that person cannot prevent an executive session and is not entitled to have a hearing.
Okay?
This case is Stewart versus Lockland School District Board of Education. We have to provide a board a copy.
Yeah, please send us a copy.
So she has no rights to?
It has not been identified who the employee is, but a public employee can require.
I am the only employee of the board.
I don't think that's accurate. A public employee can require that a hearing about his employment status be held in public under Revised Code 121.22 G1 only when the employee is otherwise entitled to a public hearing.
Just to clarify, Christy, the law is clear that I am the only employee of the board and that I serve at the pleasure of the board. 4717.03 states that all of the staff serve at my pleasure. So
I'm not going to argue with
Yeah,
you.
I'm just saying I am the only employee of the board.
I'm stating what the Supreme Court has
Mr.
done.
Chairman, I'm voting no on this. The last time this board went into executive session, with or without the advice of the AG, we were sued. I don't feel comfortable going into executive session. I'm prepared. And at this point, I'm voting no not to go in.
Roll call.
Okay, I'll indicate Mr. Wasco voiced his vote as no. Mr. Tanev?
Yes.
Mr. Marchbanks?
Yes.
Mr. Chandler?
Yes.
And Mr. Boyer?
No.
The motion fails. Can I make a personal plea to the board?
Yes, you can.
I would love it if you would go into the executive session and finally just have whatever conversation you need to have had so that we can get back to the business of the board. So if that changes your vote, I would put the motion back before you again and ask you, have whatever conversation you need to have. Is anybody willing to allow me to put that back before the board?
I'd like to know who's going to be part of the executive session.
I will be abstaining from being part of the executive session.
It'll be the board only.
Board only? I would change my vote.
Is there a
Then
motion?
You need to make a motion.
I'll make a motion, we go into well, why don't you just make your same motion? Unless you don't want to go in executive session. I'm willing to change my vote.
I've never heard of this before. But I'll make the motion. I'm
repeating the motion.
I'll make the motion to go into executive session pursuant to ORC section 121.22G, except as provided in divisions G8, and I can't see
Say
that.
that, but you can't copy and paste the statute.
I need to take out the 6.
That's not what I said though. See, again, you're putting together minutes and you're adding to what I said. We don't have an audio, we don't have a court reporter, that's not what I said. And this is a problem that's been going on since I got on this board. You put words in my mouth that don't come out of my mouth. I did not say that. I didn't say that. I'm going to repeat myself again. I'm making a motion that we go into executive session pursuant to 121.22G1 for the sole purpose of the consideration of any of the following matters, and that is to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee or official. Do I have a second?
Yes. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Tanev?
Yes.
Mr. Marchbanks?
Yes.
Mr. Boyer?
No.
Mr. Chandler?
Yes.
Mr. Wasco?
Yes.
Motion passes. You are in executive session. Please make sure the recorder is turned off.